Yes.
Welcome, everyone. I would like to call the September meeting of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission to order. First, I need a roll call, please, Amanda?
Sure. Chair June Hunsberger,
Present?
Vice Chair Patricia Trouth is absent. James Gross is absent. Glenn Johnson,
Present.
Harold Standifer is absent. David Thiele,
Here.
and Jim Wong.
Here.
Perfect, thank you. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Okay, thank you. On to item number 4, which is the approval of minutes. So I hope everybody's had a chance to review the August minutes. Are there any questions?
I move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay, motion approves, passes unanimously. Next is item number 5, which is oral communication. So this is a time for anything that's not on our current agenda for the public to come up and speak. Do we have any public speakers this evening?
We do. We have 2. Our first public speaker is Nancy Dugano with a time donation by Carol Heel.
This is for item 7A on all.
I'm sorry. That's right. So
Okay, well, super. We'll move along then. Next on our agenda is item number 6, which is special presentation, proclamation, and announcements. And we have a report from the Sheriff's Department, and Traffic Sergeant Jeremy Collis is here tonight. So do you have a report, or did you want to share anything first? I can't remember.
No, just, we have the stats, that should be up.
It is. I mean, do you want to put the link up? Or I had a couple questions about it. I'm sure maybe some of my other commissioners do. Is there?
yeah.
I can.
There's a link on the agenda, Abe.
Trying the PDF doesn't.
Just the agenda should have a live link on it. The
Okay.
file that's only the agenda.
The signed agenda?
Yep.
Yeah, it has a link, but for some reason, it seems like it's a scan, so it's not.
Okay.
Maybe I would try the.
Okay, I thought I created a link in it, but we can find it on the website too.
When I looked at it, I just copied and pasted it into my browser.
Okay.
But while we wait, any commissioners that looked at the data, do we have questions this evening? No? I have a couple questions, but I will defer to you. No? I don't. You do not? Okay. At the moment. So thank you for providing, when I looked at the data, you provided e-bike and bicycle accident data, which I really appreciate. That was in the table. And I can see that there were a total of 4 citations and 4 accidents, if I was reading that correctly. So I guess my question is that when we look at this accident data for bicycles, most bicycle accidents, unless they involve a car or are very serious, right, that doesn't get reported to the sheriff. So this data is only showing if a call was made to the sheriffs, correct? Okay.
Correct.
Now, does it also show if like an ambulance was on site? For example, we had an accident at my school I think last week, and there was an ambulance, but I did not see like a sheriff's car or a fire truck. So if a fire truck gets called, is that reported on here too, or is it just sheriff?
It's not, but if they, generally, if there's a bicycle involved, we should be called. So it has happened in the past where people just think bicycles aren't vehicles, and per our vehicle code and all that, they are. So we should be getting called if there's an ambulance on scene for a collision.
Okay, so if somebody calls 911 and says somebody fell off their bike and there's an ambulance there, you guys also get notified too and would show up?
Yes.
Okay, great. That was one of my questions. My other question was that when we looked at this data, and I think, Abe, are you in control? Can you scroll down to like the map for us? I think there's a map that has some dots right there. So I love all the data, and I know we were asking you for all of the data, which is great, but I think our previous maps that we had also had colored dots that had like, they were tiered, you know what I mean? So like more accidents, it was a different color dot. So,
I believe that was for citations in that area, combined with the, if I remember right.
okay, maybe
some
it was
reason-
citations. I guess I just feel like I was looking for that map in this, and I didn't see it in this report. So can we have both of them, or what is the
Well,
difference? So this is traffic accident, and the other one was a citation map, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so there was a combined map, if I remember right, where it had the collisions as well as where we're writing citations.
Yes.
And now we'll ask our analysts to do that next week, or next month.
Okay, great. I mean, I liked seeing this, but I just was feeling like I then had to look at the dot and go back and read through all of the data to actually figure out like how many accidents were at different intersections. Remember, we had that? And I also don't know if I see that here. You like tiered them, so it said how many accidents were at each intersection and then the citations.
Can you scroll down a little bit? There was something, I looked through it just a little bit ago. Maybe a little further. That's it, okay. I thought there was some kind of location data, but I guess not.
Okay, well, anyway, it just changed. So maybe I can look at the old one and just take a couple screenshots and send those to Abe, and he can pass those along to you, just so we could have those included as well. But anyway, that was all. I really appreciated seeing the e-bike data and the bicycle data. And I think I had one more. Yeah, the frequency of location. So those were my questions. So thank you. Anybody else have questions about the data? No. Okay. Well, it's a light evening for you then. So thank you.
I have a comment.
Okay.
Sheriff, I did see, witnessed some motor cops on El Camino Real recently. And I know that we brought that up in the last meeting, so I appreciate that. Just in terms of enforcement, it seems like, and that's just me. I live on that side of the city, and it seemed like, El Camino Real, you guys were out. And I think that's helpful, definitely. And I know that it seems like for us, as a group, we're concerned about the speed, and obviously the majority of the citations are unsafe speed or speeding. So that seems to make sense. You guys are out there, and I'm sure that people notice, even if you're not physically there, just that the possibility that you might be there could hopefully discourage people from speeding along the road and or corridor, which is going to help us.
I do see a correlation when we go out there for a bit, and then we go back there after being, we notice that speeds are lower, so it does work. But, yeah.
That's great. And I actually did have one question. I was asked, or there was a discussion happening about the fact that I think you guys teamed up with some other jurisdictions and were patrolling and passing out tickets. So can you explain what that was? Because I was really happy that you guys were working together. How did that come about, and what was the goal, and what were the results?
Sure. So basically, we call it a countywide site day. For example, Wednesday we'll all be in La Mesa, and so all the jurisdictions in the county will go to a different city every month. We'll all get together, and we do enforcement in that city. And it's just obviously we target the problem areas and the high collision rate areas, and every month we do it different place. And we actually weren't doing them here for a while, for whatever reason, but we're back to working with the other jurisdictions and making that happen.
Okay, fabulous. And what were the results? Do you know how many citations were issued, or will we know that in the following month data? I just didn't know if you had a general idea.
I have the email that has all that information. I can pull that up real quick. Just take a minute.
Perfect. I know a lot of citizens were talking about it, and I really was happy to see that. So I appreciated that you guys were making that happen, because I think it is one of the best ways we can slow traffic and make it safer for everybody. Okay.
Of course, I changed passwords today, so excuse me.
Okay, well, we can circle back if you'd prefer, if you want to find it and just,
Sure.
would that be okay?
That'd be better, yes.
Yeah, we
Take a
can
minute.
circle back. We can do that when we have our next transition. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, then we can move on to 7A, which is our action item. So 7A is the safety and mobility enhancements in the vicinity of the development projects. I think first we'll do our engineering report and then take public speakers.
Alrighty. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, members of the public. I'm Matthew Edgeworth, Associate Traffic Engineer here at the city. Thank you. So tonight's item, 7A, is regarding safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element site study. So a little background on how this study came to be. So as part of the city's housing element, specifically the 6-cycle housing element for years 2021 through 2029, multiple sites were upzoned for multifamily housing to accommodate the future growth of the city. As part of the housing element, 15 sites were identified for this multifamily housing, and you can see a map on this slide showing where those 15 sites are. These 15 sites are located citywide and across all 5 communities here in the city. So a little background on how the study came about. So on October 19th, 2022, Mayor Kranz had a city council initiated item for staff to look at traffic calming and pedestrian improvements in the vicinity of these housing element development projects. From that meeting, council directed staff to advance mobility improvements near these housing element sites. And then later on, earlier this year, on February 15th, 2023, council approved the scope as well as the funding to conduct a study to look at potential improvements and projects near these housing element sites. So the current schedule of the study, so we can see here back in February is when City Council approved both the funding and the scope of the study. Staff conducted a kickoff meeting with the consultant back in March. During the period of March to June, the consultant evaluated the city's adopted planning documents, which we'll talk about a bit later, and identified potential improvements near the housing element sites. And then in June, the consultant conducted citywide field visits, both with staff and on their own. And then in August, we held 3 community meetings to receive public input. So a little bit on the scope and where we are at with the study. So kind of backtracking in terms of what the consultant has already performed. So they did look at existing site conditions, as well as looking at the traffic impact studies for these housing element sites. They did go through the city's adopted planning documents, so the ATP, Active Transportation Plan, the MAP, the Modal Alternatives Project, as well as the LRSP, which stands for the Local Roadway Safety Plan. In addition, they did identify additional improvements and conducted field visits. And then for each of these projects, they did do a preliminary feasibility assessment. And then item E is where we're at today, holding those community meetings last month, and then continuing with receiving community feedback. And then for items F through H, we'll talk a bit later on in the presentation on kind of next steps of the study. So I just wanted to touch upon improvements that the city is allowed to condition with these housing element sites. So as mentioned, all housing element projects are required to conduct site-specific traffic impact studies. Within these traffic impact studies, they are looking at delay and congestion, otherwise known as level of service at nearby intersections to these sites. And then within these reports, they're looking to see if the added trips generated for these projects are consistent or not consistent with the city's general plan policies. And then in addition, state housing law prohibits the city from conditioning by right projects. By right meaning that they are able to provide 20% affordable units, and they aren't proposing a subdivision to make offsite improvements unless there are a CIP project in the area or if it's inconsistent with the city's general plan policies. And then I wanted to touch on a few improvements that we have conditioned approved projects here at the city. So Sunshine Gardens, that is an approved project going on the northeast corner of Quail Gardens Drive and Encinitas Boulevard. So we can see here the conditions. They are conditioned to provide signal modifications at the Quail Gardens, Encinitas Boulevard, and Westlake intersection. They are conditioned to also optimize signal timing at that intersection as well. And then for Moonlight Apartments, so this project was approved by Planning Commission. It is going to a public hearing this Wednesday at City Council for an appeal. So the current conditions as part of that project, they are to widen Encinitas Boulevard from 2 to 3 vehicular lanes for westbound traffic just west of the intersection. They are also conditioned to construct active transportation facilities, so they are required to build a sidewalk as well as bike lanes along their project frontage. They are required to restripe left turn pockets in the area, and then they are required to modify the existing traffic signal located at Encinitas Boulevard and the Town and Country driveway where the Smart and Final is located. So as mentioned, the consultant did go through the city's approved planning documents to look at potential projects that relates to this study. So the 3 planning documents that the consultant looked at include the active transportation plan, the ATP, the MAP, the Modal Alternatives Project, as well as the LRSP, also known as the Local Roadway Safety Plan. So last month, the city held 3 community meetings. We separated based off of zone. So we separated the city into 3 different zones to focus on different areas, as well as different corridors in the city. So we can see here, meeting by meeting, which corridors specifically we looked at. And then the types of projects or improvements that were presented to the public in addition to the projects that were the public came up with include active transportation projects, so improving bicycle and pedestrian facilities, traffic calming projects, so reducing speeds, traffic congestion relief, so improving level of service, also known as delay and congestion, and then non-engineering improvements as well. So the feedback that we got from the community is listed on these next couple slides. I do want to mention this feedback is not complete at the moment. We are still accepting input from the community. So this may change, things may be added as time goes on. But I wanted to kind of point out the top improvements that came out of the Zone 1 community meeting, which included the Lucchese area. So a couple top improvements included the North Vulcan Avenue multi-use path, the La Costa Avenue multimodal improvements, which include a 2-way left lane, turn lane, buffered bike lanes and sidewalks, the realignment of Piraea Street for access onto Lucadia Boulevard, Saxony Road sidewalk infill, adaptive traffic signal timing, and then increased enforcement. And then at those meetings, we did ask the community to come up with projects as well that weren't presented to them. And then listed below here under added improvements from the community, we can see the projects that the community came up with. And then same thing, moving on to Zone 2, which focus on the old Encinitas area. So the top improvements that came out of that community meeting included Encinitas Boulevard improvements. So we can see here what that entails: raised medians, restriping to narrow travel lanes, widening of existing bike lanes, and the addition of green paint. And then speed cushions or raised crossings with RRFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons along Saxony Road Class 2 bike lanes, speed cushions or raised crossings along Quail Gardens Drive, and then sidewalk infill along Quail Gardens Drive along the frontage of the San Diego Botanic Garden. And then here we can see the list of added improvements that the community came up with at that meeting. And then lastly, the Zone 3 meeting, the last community meeting that we held, which focused on the Cardiff, New Encinitas, and Livenhain area. We can see here the top improvements that the community had at that meeting, which included El Camino Real Class 4 protected bike lanes, El Camino Real sidewalk infill, Rancho Santa Fe bike lanes, funding for the construction of a pedestrian trail, also known as Trail 82, on Rancho Santa Fe Road between Encinitas Boulevard and El Camino del Norte, and then in addition, providing additional east and west pedestrian connections along South El Camino Real. And then on the bottom, we can see here again the added improvements that from the community that came out of that meeting. So in terms of community input, so the city did perform community outreach via the city's website, social media, weekly newsletter reports, public bulletin boards. We did advertise in the Coast News, and we are here tonight asking to receive input from the commission on the study. So as of today, there have been a total of 106 comment cards or responses that have been submitted to the city, which includes those who attended the meetings. I would like to mention that we are accepting public comments until the end of this month. So on the city's website, we do have a link available to provide comments via an electronic comment form. We also have the presentations that we presented at those 3 community meetings also posted on the city's website as well. So the future steps of the study, here we are today receiving community input and feedback. So again, as mentioned, we will be accepting community comments until the end of this month. So we have a couple more weeks. And then later this fall, we will be presenting the feedback that we received from the community to City Council. At that meeting, City Council will choose their top 5 projects citywide. And then after City Council chooses their top 5 projects, the consultant will develop 30% design plans and cost estimates for those projects. And then later in the year or early next year, the consultant will prepare a final report, which includes those 30% design plans and cost estimates for those 5 projects. And then lastly, the last key piece to this study is a final report that will be presented to council in spring of next year. So I have here the questions that are currently listed on the comment card. So we did ask these questions at the community meetings. In addition, these are the questions that we are asking the public to help respond to. So we'll go over this in a bit. So that concludes my presentation. So the recommended action tonight is to receive the report, in addition to provide input to staff on the current stage of the study. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edgeworth. I really appreciate it. That was interesting, and I'm glad we got to see that tonight. I think we have some public comments.
We do. We have 4. We'll start with Nancy Digano with a time donation by Carol Heel, followed by Marianne Penton.
No. It should be in just a sec.
My name is Nancy Digano. I live in Northwest Leucadia. Many of us who live in Encinitas or visit Encinitas do so partially because of the beaches. Even if we don't live close to the beach, we visit the beach, especially on the hotter days. Kids ride their bikes to school and to the beach, and adults ride their bikes to the beach and the restaurants nearby, partially because parking is limited and will become more limited after streetscape and much-needed improvements to Vulcan. Plus, Northwest Leucadia was the target of 44% of all Encinitas upzoning from the last housing element update, so we have all those developments going in, which doesn't even include the new luxury hotel, the La Costa 48 homes, the boutique hotel next to the Chevron, or the infill developments on Andrew and also Sheridan at La Costa that will add more traffic both in cars and outside of cars. And new developments are providing considerably less than 2 parking spaces per unit, not per bedroom, which won't allow for roommates or visitors to drive there in cars and park with ease. As you know, Encinitas has 3 major arteries to the beaches: Chesterfield and Cardiff at the south end, Encinitas Boulevard to Moonlight Beach in the middle of the city, and La Costa Avenue to Grandview and Ponto at the north end. The Chesterfield area has had considerable improvements over the years, not just for bicyclists and pedestrians, but improved parking and traffic signal improvements, and also beautification, just for the pleasure of it, not only on the rail trail, but they even got a now infamous sculpture. Encinitas Boulevard and Moonlight Beach have been kept up to date with pedestrian and bicycle access, always stops, notably more parking than other beaches, and maintained parking, and even a playground full of equipment. Not only are these 2 arteries mobility friendly, there is another pedestrian bicycle access point at Santa Fe Drive to Swami's Beach through the beautiful railroad undercrossing between them, and they even got big carved tikis for more beautification. On top of that, there is yet another railroad undercrossing planned between them at Verdi and Cardiff that is well along in the process and funding. And just to the north of Encinitas Boulevard is the new railroad undercrossing at Paul Ecke Central. Now then, if you look at what we have north of Leucadia Boulevard, mobility, especially on Vulcan, is nearly in the same feeble condition it was in back in 1986 when the city incorporated. Until we got Abe, our traffic engineer, working at City Hall, we had almost 0 chance of making any progress on Vulcan and La Costa Avenues in northwestern Leucadia. When he came on board, he recognized the neglected, lame, unsafe, unsightly, and unusable condition of our corridor and has been a tremendous help getting our needs recognized. We have no sidewalks or walk paths, no pedestrian rail crossing, and no connectivity to the beaches or businesses on the 101. And yet there are many pedestrians and bicyclists in the area trying to navigate the situation, and the numbers are increasing. It's scary. And many of the e-bike riders are completely disobeying traffic laws to the point of nearing a fatal collision. My top asks for these mobility projects: North Vulcan Avenue multi-use path, La Costa Avenue multimodal improvements, increased traffic law enforcement for vehicles and bikes, adaptive traffic signal timing, and connectivity overall. You've got a lot of projects to choose from that would be really nice to implement. However, these 2 listed projects in Northwest Leucadia on Vulcan and La Costa are necessary and decades overdue. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Marianne Penton, followed by Dennis Caden.
Hi, my name is Marianne Penton. I live in Leucadia, Northwest Leucadia. And hello to the council. Hello to Abe. Hi, Abe. Hi, you guys. Mr. Edgeworth, thank you for putting the study together. I appreciate that. Okay, after submitting my opinion card, I gave this a lot of thought, the survey and the contents, and I did not hear, well, I wasn't able to make the meeting, and I'm a little nervous, so I apologize, but I wasn't able to make the meeting, but I looked through the survey very thoroughly. I came up with some concerns after I submitted the opinion card, and I wanted to pass these by you. all, okay? First of all, I'm so happy that the city of Encinitas is being proactive, finally, in planning infrastructure modifications as a result of present and future high-density housing in residential areas. Kudos to them. Kudos to all of you guys. However, I'd like to share these following concerns for Zone 1, especially for the Leucadia zone. The decision of the funding, I feel, should be heavily weighed on the building status of the projects in these housing areas, housing element areas. It is of huge benefit to map out in advance modality modifications needed as a result of the proposed developments. But one would think that action on these projects in the process of being built are of more urgent need than those still in the permit stages, such as AD 31 and 85. Permitting and construction of the latter projects will take time, thus allowing the city more time to analyze, fund, and fulfill the modification needs of those projects. Construction is in process at 88 and 09, which includes the Wormer property. Because of the current chronic and anticipated modality, because of the current, as you say, chronic and anticipated modality problems in and around the area of 88, time is of essence, and funding for these current projects in action should be given priority, I strongly feel. And why is project number 2 in this document? That is, Austin Wormers just confirmed that his company will pay completely for the installation of the culvert to be underground, the protection of the wall, modify Vulcan Avenue, create walking paths on both sides of Vulcan, and give a single bike lane. So votes for this project, which already is funded by the developer, dilutes other important options for the Leucadia portion of the survey. That doesn't make sense to me. And why are projects that require less money of equal weight as those that are expensive, that are more expensive? Project number 1, project number 12, and 14 should require significantly less money than other projects. So why shouldn't they be considered as quick fix projects funded by other sources? Oh, can I just finish? Just 32 tenths, or other
Continue
projects?
on.
Because there's so many people. Okay. Why can't we figure out other ways to fund that, or group them together to have equal weight as the other projects? And my final thing is, why is Project 15 included in this survey? This project is it's the synchronization of the signals based on actual use on the roads. This project is applicable to all intersections with traffic signals, not just the planned high-density housing element areas. To me, this is another category that is a citywide project. Again, votes for this project dilutes votes for other important options, especially in Leucadia. So I request that all parties involved consider these concerns as the process continues. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Next, we have Dennis Caden, followed by Karen Caden.
Thank you. Number one one of the number one priorities was to have Piraeus have access to Leucadia Boulevard to the south. That's going to take a lot of coordination with Caltrans, and I would ask that they reprioritize the widening of Piraeus at La Costa Avenue. There's a project that was just approved, Piraeus Point, with 149 townhomes being built there. The developer said 80% of the traffic will be leaving from, that'll be between Plato and La Costa Avenue. They said 80% of the traffic is going to go to La Costa Avenue. So I would encourage, if the committee can recommend to the city that Piraeus, since it's planned to be a suburban collector, it ends up being 3 lanes wide. The middle lane would be so advantageous for a left turn lane for the people when they come home and they're going south on Piraeus from La Costa, that it's a staging lane for them to make their left turn without blocking everybody else. Because right now, a lot of times people making a left on any of our streets, there's not enough room, they block the lane. So that would be maintain a suburban collector status. And so you're going to need a lot of room for that. It's supposed to be 50 feet wide, and that does not include the trail system, which adds another 6 feet. But if staff could reevaluate and take I mean, I speak for our entire community that we feel the level of service in the EIR was unmitigable for the traffic generated by Piraeus Point. So if we were to be able to widen Piraeus at La Costa so that you have 2 lanes making a left-hand turn and a full lane for the right-hand turn so that they're not blocked, that would be extremely advantaged for us. Policy 2.4, the circulation element, basically says that new development's not supposed to impact existing neighborhoods. So you owe us one. And the other is, what? Oh, Quail Gardens Drive coming out of, let's say, the golf course or the new Fox Point. In there, you state that you're going to extend the lane to make a left-hand turn going onto Leucadia Boulevard going east. You're going to extend it 25 feet. Can you do much more? Because that's there. I forget how many units are going to be in Fox Point, but it almost doubles the neighborhood up there between Fox Point and whatever those other gated communities are. So maybe consider doing that. Our future, because of these R30s, all the intersections are going to be so impacted. They need to be widened seriously. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Karen Caden, and we live on the east side, I guess you can call it northeast, Leucadia. And I agree, Vulcan should have been fixed long time ago. I don't even drive on there, but I know how dangerous, and I appreciate what you guys are saying. So I'm reading this. This regards to Piraeus Point. The reason why we weren't here on August 21st is because ECC had an appeal against a lot of the waivers, cutting in 40% into an encroachment, and there's a habitat, there's a lot of stuff. But anyway, we lost. I'm sad. But we lost because the developers are getting their benefit social approval. And one of the benefits social approval in Piraeus Point is written as their sidewalks, their safety is a pedestrian experience. So I'm here for all the residents of Encinitas to have a pedestrian safe walk, safe biking, and safe driving for everyone, not just us on the other side. We're a little bit more rural where we live, and I'm here for pages 22 to 25, and I don't want to see anyone's right-of-way taken for a sidewalk when Piraeus Point, we're fighting about them not taking away our right-of-way, that we want to have sidewalk, we want to have a buffer, we want to have safety. So Cheryl's in Blind Hillside, that when you're driving and you don't know what's on the other side on Piraeus, and I believe that they're going to take the Cheryl away and put bike lane on the side for protection. Also, the hybrid Class 2 bike lane, you're going to allow overnight parking on Piraeus Street from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. For who? Please take that out. I'm being like I'm sorry. And then that means there's going to be take a right away. Also, we got no benefits from our denial, so I want to see some social benefits for the residents of Encinitas. Plato Place. We know that the developer cannot build the sidewalk up Plato, and it reaches Carter Street, has a safe route to school. That sidewalk is for that. But I have a concern. The city owns more land on the south side. Push for the south side and cut in there, because Piraeus Point is going to have 40.3% of the property cut in, 83,000 cubic yards. The city can cut in on the safer side, the south side of Plato. Thank you. South side of Plato.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Can you just tell me, when you look at those, what project number that is when you were? That's okay.
Would you like
Just zone one, which project?
6, 7? And I did not get to the others.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know that for reference when we pull. And 9. Thank you. Sure. Thank you for speaking. Okay. Sometimes I forget I'm in charge. I need to move us along. So here we go. So we just did our public comment. Next up, do any commissioners have comments, questions, would like to share their opinion about what we've heard, what projects they're interested in?
I do have some comments on the project, not necessarily on the
Sure,
communications.
but please.
Okay. So I'll just try and go through these projects sequentially, but I just looking at my notes, I don't remember the projects that well. But starting with project 1, which is bicycle boxes and bike lanes.
Okay, can I just interrupt you really quick? We can maybe ask Mr.
Engineer Edgeworth.
Edgeworth to please put them up, and yeah, there we go. So we know, and also say what zone and project, because
Correct.
they are different. That was a little
Understand.
confusing.
Yeah, I'm
Perfect.
going through 1, 2, 3, zones 1 through 3, so I'll try remember to announce that. So anyway, I don't have anything specific about North Coast Highway. I'm just asking that anywhere there are bike boxes and new bike lanes that are painted green, there should be detectors for bikes, and they should be sensitive bikes, and they should be marked. Because as Sergeant Collins mentioned, bicycles are vehicles, and so they should get the same attention as other cars, And it's really quite frustrating to not have traffic lights recognize you. So I understand that sometimes the loops are not sensitive enough, but it's not that hard. They can be sensitive enough. They just have to be marked and made sensitive enough. So another factor with the bike boxes and new bike lanes, there really should be a no right turn lane, no right turn on red there, because cars often get quite irate if a bike has the tenacity to block a right turn lane, which they feel is their right. So no right turns on red where there are bike boxes. Project 5, slide 21. So this one again, it's similar to Sheridan. I think there should be some pylons protecting the bike lane, because for the same reason that there are pylons in Sheridan, is to prevent cars from cutting into the bike lane when they want to get around a left-turning car. There should be the same one at Vulcan. It's the same sort of situation, a T intersection.
Commissioner Wong, are you're talking about on the,
Westbound side.
yes, on the westbound side, you're just,
See, on the westbound side of Acosta, adjacent to, opposite Sheridan, is a T intersection.
yeah, I know it exactly.
Okay, so when there are cars waiting to turn left onto Sheridan going westbound, then often cars don't want to wait behind them, so they want to go around them on the right.
I understand. I think my confusion is just, sorry, if you just meant on the north side of the street.
Correct.
So yes, I was confused when you said west, but on the north side of the street across from that intersection, you're just asking to also include in this signal design bollards, so that, yes, I got it.
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you, sorry for not completely explaining it, but it's,
That's okay. I
Without
just
having
think
diagrams,
maybe,
hard to
are
read.
they pulling it up? Are you pulling it up on Google Maps or, yeah? Because we have them right there. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I think project 6, I think there's a motion, a proposal to implement a northbound bike lane, but there's no southbound bike lane. And I think whenever someone wants to go north, they want to go south too when coming back. So they should be paired. Project number 7, there's a new new sidewalk, I believe, on the north side of Plato. Intention is that pedestrians come down from Plato and then walk along Vulcan to Orpheus Park. So I think there should be a crosswalk at the bottom of Plato, so they can get from that crosswalk, the new crosswalk down Plato, to the southeast corner of Vulcan. And that's where there'll be a new sidewalk as well going down to Orpheus.
I don't think that's not on the Vulcan side. You're on the wrong side of the road there. That's,
Piraeus. Sorry, Piraeus.
there you go.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
confused. I'm not a Lucadia resident.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Yeah, it's just,
Okay, sorry, I've confused everyone. So,
so you're also asking for a crosswalk to be added to this design?
correct, just at the bottom of Plato
Yes.
there, north-south on the, I think you understand what I mean.
Yes, I guess closest to the freeway, is that what you're saying?
No, on the east side of Pareo, north-south. So see where the blue line ends at the bottom of Plato? And
Yes.
just right there, where the arrow is. So
Okay,
Engineer,
okay,
Edgeworth has it correct.
yes. I see, yeah. Great, thank you.
All right, this is adoptive signal timing again. I think, again, I'm asking for the traffic signals to be sensitive to bikes, because right now, if you're using LS ignores everything but cars, but there are other road users besides cars. So that's why I think they should be, anytime you're going to modify a traffic signal, it should be made sensitive to bikes as well, and of course pedestrians. So that's the problem with LS. I hope there's a motion. I thought there was a motion to change from LS to MMLS, multimodal LS. So if you're just using LS, it is ignoring everything but cars. And as the sergeant said, bicycles are also vehicles. All right, Zone 2, Project 8, Westlake. Thank you for paying attention to that and making it more bike-friendly, but I hope that will connect with safe routes to San Diego Academy, for instance. So that would be making also Requisa and Nardo safer. Right now, I think they may have Sharrows, which is pretty minimal. Sharrows really don't add too much to safety, especially on a narrow two-lane like that, because I find very rarely are cars willing to follow a bike, Sharrow or not. Even if there's a double line, they won't do that. So, yeah, you can make them safer going up Westlake, that's great, but they still need to get to the academy or wherever the destination is. So, please complete the route. Project 12. So these, I think, is widening the bike lane eastbound on Encinitas Boulevard towards the Blower. So there's a problem in the afternoons when cars are waiting to pick up students at the church school. I don't know exactly the name of it, but it's right at the bottom of that curve there, and they often just park in the bike lane. So if you could put pylons or something there, just prevent that and let the school handle what to do with the cars, because that's a problem for bikes, especially going uphill, because they shouldn't be going into the traffic lane. Project 16. So I think we discussed in the past about changing parallel parking to angled parking in downtown Encinitas, and the commission unanimously voted against that, stating that it's quite unfriendly to other traffic besides cars, pedestrians, residents, and bikes. And so I was surprised to see this show up. So I'd be totally against Project 16, which is converting parallel parking to angled parking. Project 19 is adoptive signal timing again, so I won't repeat that. So Zone 3, Project 2, I don't know what that was. Okay, the easiest way to increase safety on El Camino Real, and I believe one of the speakers said that, is to lower the speed limit. The speed limit on El Camino Real is 55 miles an hour all the way to Santa Fe, which is where Brody's accident was. 55 miles an hour is too fast. So whatever we can do to lower that, I think would increase the safety. And that's basically all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I always appreciate hearing your input on bike safety. It's important for the commission. Thank you.
Pet safety too, so.
Okay, I'm Commissioner Johnson, and I actually was able to attend the sessions on zones 1 and 2, and I got in my comments there. I had another commitment on Wednesday night, so I missed the session on the largest area, Zone 3. I want to approach this from a little higher level here. The purpose of the study was to present a ranked list of the top 3 or the top 5 projects, present them to City Council. So many of these projects are little ones that would cost less than $10,000 each, that we ought to put all those just in one bag and just do the darn things. It's better to do those dinky projects than to discuss them half the year. All of the projects that were mentioned have merit, and I think in any hearing on a single project, you'll hear a lot of citizens favoring it and a few opposing it. This is Encinitas, and there's a lot of involved citizens. At these particular community meetings, the turnout was rather sparse. There were just a handful of people in this room for the zones 1 and 2. Yeah, there was insufficient public notification to get a room full, and I think the results that the consultant is getting are rather biased in favor of the people who were able to get up those evenings and speak, and I got my word in. So we might want to look at a better way of ranking things for City Council. Some of these projects take a lot of money, some of them are kind of medium price, and just going after the top 5 won't solve the problem that we have, which, clearly we have to go shopping for some grants to do a lot of these things. And all of the streets that the county built before Encinitas was incorporated pretty much don't have curbs and sidewalks. And the newer ones, the city required the developer to provide the curbs and sidewalks, which increased the cost and value of the homes. I don't know that there's enough money around to build all the curbs and sidewalks we need without getting a good federal grant, but we should certainly be a safer community with that. So I'd like to see the commission suggest to the council that the higher valued projects should be considered first, and the bag of low value projects should be just plain implemented instead of debated all year. And those are just my comments.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. It was a clear summary of what we need to look at this evening. Commissioner Gross? No comments. Commissioner Thiele?
I do have a few, and this concerns Zone 3. And I'm just looking at the photo here, and that looks to be what's happened on the Coast Highway. And is that recommended for El Camino Real as well, something similar to that? Or is it going to be similar to Leucadia Boulevard, where it's just the pylon? Do you not know yet?
That would come about in the design process. So El Camino Real, south of Santa Fe Drive, is listed in the ATP as being a Class 4 or protected facility. So we would make that determination during design in terms of what vertical deflection we would use out there.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And I think in general, Commissioner Wong said, speed reduction is really a big concern, and obviously El Camino Real is really exaggerative speed a lot of the time, and Coast Highway as well. But I think this is really a main concern of us, and citywide it should be as well. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you so much. So our job is to take this study from you, provide input, which I think the commissioners have provided some input here, and then I realize that the goal of this is to pick, or for City Council, is for them to pick 5 of these projects to fund. And I completely agree with Commissioner Johnston that all of these smaller ones just seem a little silly to debate. You know, I was hoping that some of them seem like they're already on the quick build agenda for Wednesday night's meeting. You know, I think there's a few things that are listed on Saxony and Quail Gardens that are on your Wednesday night agenda that are also here, which are being considered as a quick build project. So I agree. I think we should look at the larger projects, and that that's what this should focus on. I have a couple questions for you. How were these projects decided? Was it conjunction with you and the consultant, or did the consultant just look at the studies that had been done and then put all of these lists together?
Thank you, Chair. So the consultant did initially evaluate the projects on their own. They did, after that, present it to staff, and then through a collaborative effort, we kind of worked with them to modify projects and also add projects to the list they came up with. They also looked through the city's planning documents, so the ATP, the map, and the LRSP. So they were tasked with evaluating those documents to see which projects they could pull out of there and apply to this study.
Okay, great, thank you. So you guys had input as well and provided your thoughts. So a couple of thoughts I have. I really believe that projects in this city should be prioritized and funded by need and lack of infrastructure. It is really difficult, and I think Commissioner Johnston pointed it out, that when we ask for community input on projects, you can get a very swayed response depending on who is available to come, who sees the notice, who financially has the ability to attend evening meetings when people are working, and every community is different. You know, when you look at communities in Leucadia, we're very diverse. You look at communities in, New Encinitas, they have HOAs, and they are very organized and able to speak for their needs. So I really do always appreciate community input, but I also think that our city needs to reflect on the current state of infrastructure and really prioritize using studies they've already done, which we've already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars prioritizing projects and seeing where we need them. And so I am hoping that the council does not base their 5 recommendations just solely based on community input. However, with that said, I do appreciate everybody's input, and I'm always appreciative that people can make it to the meetings. So the city has repeatedly identified the same corridors in multiple studies, in the ATP, in the MAP, and in the LRSP, to be desperately in need of improvements. And these areas really are Saxony, which is a dangerous road, Vulcan Avenue, and La Costa. These 3 streets are also right in the middle of, as a speaker said earlier, 44% of all of these developments are happening in Northwest Leucadia. And it feels a difficult pill to swallow to have 44% of these projects, and yet if we don't get 44% of whatever funding there is for these projects, I think I would be greatly disappointed, because these neighborhoods need more work than any of the others where these projects are going in. Many of these projects, I realize, are going in and are going to impact, and I completely agree. We need to improve the signal. I really appreciated your suggestions about the left-hand turn lane and making it longer, and really forward-thinking about what traffic is going to look like. That is so important. But and that definitely needs to be done. But when we have communities where we are getting, we have two new hotels, we have multiple apartments and houses going in, and yet we have no sidewalks and bike lanes still, it is a bitter pill to swallow for those neighborhoods to watch a slight infill of a sidewalk get prioritized when they don't even have a sidewalk at all. So, as I look at the list, if I had to choose 5, my top 3 would definitely be in Northwest Leucadia. They would be the Zone 1 project, number 3, number 4, and number 5, that traffic signal. Those 3 I find are just so important. That multi-use path along North Vulcan Avenue, the community has been asking for this for the last 10 years, and Abe, I do appreciate everything you've done to try to make that happen. I mean, I know you've got the grading and the parking, and it has improved, but it is still not a safe corridor. The La Costa Avenue, we need that improvement too. We have multiple housing coming in there. And then that traffic signal on Vulcan, because we are gonna have the same situation that the gentleman was describing on Quail Gardens. It's gonna be all of these people trying to get in and out in one entrance onto Vulcan Avenue, and we need that signal timed, and hopefully a left-hand turn lane is there. And then those are my top 3. I mean, and then after that, it's just so difficult to figure it out. You look at Saxony, they need Class 1 bike lanes, they need sidewalks on both sides. I completely agree with the projects they were discussing on Piraeus, that also needs sidewalks. There's going to be hundreds of new people there that are trying to get in and out safely, and I think it's going to be a very similar situation to what we have on Vulcan. You have a small 2-lane road with people trying to get in and out of a housing development, and they need a dedicated left-hand turn lane, sidewalks to get to school, all of it. So I am so glad you've brought this to us and are asking for our input, but it is also very difficult to prioritize 5 projects out of the whole community. I mean, I could probably do 5 in each section, and those are 5 big ones. So again, I don't know what you were looking for, if you wanted us all to just give you our top 5, or you wanted us to come to a consensus on a top 5, which I think is maybe unrealistic, but I do feel like Northwest Leucadia has a lot of needs on both sides, Northwest and Northeast Leucadia, and they do need to be addressed. So those are my comments. Anybody else? No.
Thank you, Chair. So as Matthew mentioned earlier, City Council requested that directed us that we change the scope of the project when it was initiated to only ask the consultant to preliminarily prioritize the projects, do not cost estimate, do not design, just bring the list of the projects to the City Council with a sort of high-level 30,000 feet prioritization, and then let them decide. One correction, I'm not sure if it was in our presentation or in the report, council will not necessarily fund 5 projects this time. Council will only pick 5 projects as a scope of the consultant for a 30% design and potential cost estimate. At the end, when they want to finally approve the study and the 5 projects that are 30% designed, if they want to, for the fiscal year 24-25, fund any of those, that's a different story. But at this time, this is just a study. With regards to expectations from this meeting, as we received help and advice from the commissioners, the idea is if you see something that's missing in here, well, if you don't see something, what about this idea, this improvement that can help at this area? What about this missing project that we think would benefit the city? Or this project doesn't make sense because of this reason or that reason. These are the type of ideas, the same comments that we received from those 106 comments that Matthew received from residents. We're looking at that. We don't necessarily need prioritization, because as I said, what we are going to do is we're going to come up with some criteria: cost, super high, high, medium, low, feasibility, nearly impossible, somewhat possible, easy to do. That it's some sort of a high-level ranking, and we just present this to council to give them an idea of, well, this project is very tough to achieve, this project is easy to do, this project will be very costly, to give them an idea, and then they will prioritize. So we don't need any kind of top 5 project chosen by commissioners tonight, but if there are ideas about, and there's similar to what Commissioner Wong mentioned, or you also had some comments about some projects. If there are stuff that you think are missing here, if you like something about a project, if you think a change can be made to some of these projects, that's what we're after tonight. And Matthew had that questionnaire in the end. We can discuss those questions. I would appreciate it if commissioners at their own time, doesn't need to be tonight, give us one comment letter based on the report they received tonight and based on the project list, that maybe you can send them a link to the projects so commissioners can see all those projects, because it would take a long time to go over all the projects. But these 7 questions that you see here tonight, it would be great to have input from the commissioners. As Matthew said, we have until September 30th to receive input, so it would be good to receive it from you.
Okay, that's great, and thank you for clarifying. I did have a couple other questions just about projects, if possible to bring them up. It was in Zone 1 and 2, project number 10 on Saxony was a Class 2 bike lane. So that Saxony was just included in both Zone 1 and Zone 2, is that correct? You just put that in both of those zones. I just wanted to.
Correct. The boundary for Zone 1 and Zone 2 is based off of the community boundary. So at Union Street is the boundary between Leucadia and Old Encinitas.
Okay, and so I also saw that Project 11 was Saxony Road infill on both sides of the street. Could we look at that? Does that, for both sides of the street, is that getting us between which 2 streets? I just was trying to double check. That's from Leucadia Boulevard to, is it getting all the way to make it connecting so that you get to Encinitas Boulevard? Is it the entire stretch?
Correct. So the project proposes pedestrian connectivity along Saxony Road. So I believe you have a couple 100 feet, maybe 100 feet, 200 feet or so, just south of the Leucadia Boulevard intersection. So it would start there, and then it would continue on southward to where we have existing sidewalks. So we do have sidewalks in pieces along this segment. So this project would essentially propose filling in those sidewalk gaps on both sides.
Okay, yeah, that one is, I also think that one is really important because we have so many kids using that stretch to get to the Y. So, okay, good. I was glad to see that project on there. And then I also just had a couple questions about Project 13, also in Zone 1, which was the Union Street. Yes. So my question was, and I tried to look this up, they're proposing putting that path down Union Street right there. And I think also a bike lane down Union Street was another one of the projects. Is there going to be access to one of the housing developments off of Union Street? I didn't realize that was happening, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't see it. Or is this just that the neighbors could exit there and use that safely? Is that going to be also a car corridor, or is it just for people and bicycles?
So this portion of Union Street off of Saxony Road is going to provide ingress and egress for the Clark's Avenue apartments situated right here where the arrow is. So that project is conditioned to build the DG path along their frontage. So this project would propose just a continuation beyond their frontage to fully construct the improvements along Union Street.
Okay. Great. And then I think the last one, was it project number 2 in Zone 1? Can you bring that one up for me? Okay, and I think that this was the one that the speaker had brought up, that part of this was going to be done by the developer, but I'm just not seeing if this is the right one that she was referencing. Do you know the one she was referencing?
I believe it's this one. And I did want to mention, my apologies, this first bullet. So the developer at 1967 Vulcan Avenue, they are conditioned to build pedestrian facilities along their frontage on the east and west sides. So this project would essentially connect to those facilities further south. So it would be south of the development going to Lucadia Boulevard.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then the other two projects I just also wanted to look at, I think it was project 6 and 7 and 9 that the other speakers had brought up. So that was the bike lane, and then can we just look at 7? Okay, north side of the street was the path. Okay, and then the other one was, what is project 9? Left-hand turn lane, okay. So I think one of the additions that they had proposed was to include 2 left-hand turn lanes. Is that in this, or is that not in this?
So that would come about during the design process. So this project number 9 is proposing roadway widening in order to accommodate 2 left lanes or an extension of the right turn lane along
Okay.
that.
Okay, so if they wanted to provide more input, they could do it. If this project was getting approved, they would come in and provide that input then?
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. I think that's all the clarification I was looking for. Any other commissioners?
Again, from a higher level, one of the things that we lack is good north-south connectivity, and that's Piraeus, Saxony, Vulcan, and those might deserve better priority.
I definitely agree. Those streets could use, that would be great if those were the streets that were focused on, because they are going to be impacted so much with development, and people need to move safely between them with all of this development. So, development is coming, and hopefully we can just make it safer for all of us moving between it. So I thank you for providing the overarching, Commissioner Johnston. I appreciate that. Okay, well, if there are no other comments or input from the commission, then thank you for your time this evening. Mr. Edgeworth, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the report, and we can all provide our comment card here at a later date. Okay, well, with that said, I think we're on to our next agenda item, which is number 8, City Traffic Engineer Report. And I think we start with the Safety and Mobility Project updates. Did anybody have any comments? Are you going to put that up for us to see, or? Thank you. I'm going to pull it up on my screen here. I just need a minute. So the signals, I just had a quick question. The signals are going to be modified and constructed in November of this, so a couple months away?
Yes, a few of the signal equipments, I think 2 or 3, are our decorative green signal poles and mast arms. They're different from the regular poles and mast arms that we order. and they're, I guess, made to order. They're not readily available. It took them a couple of months to make them. The ETA is October, November right now. Once we get them, we can start construction on those. I think the Vulcan and Leucadia one, that's the only one, Matthew, that's decorative.
Okay. And then the lead pedestrian intervals, that's still a ways out. It looks like January or February as well.
Yeah, the consultant is hired. They are evaluating all the 48, 50 intersections that are on the ground to evaluate what the needs of each intersection, each signal is. Once they finalize their study, we would have to send it to Caltrans for the construction budget.
Okay, and just to confirm, you're not going to be able to put that lead pedestrian interval on the intersection that is at Leucadia Boulevard and Orpheus, or will you be able to get that installed? Because our last communication was that was a Caltrans light.
That's a Caltrans. There was a comment, I believe, not about LPI, there was a comment about a protected left turn that I passed to Caltrans, but I don't think there was anything about LPI. Maybe
Okay.
I was mistaken.
No, you're right. It was a protected left-hand
Yeah.
turn. So you
But
passed
no,
that
that's
along.
that's not our signal, yeah.
Okay, so you passed along the left-hand turn, but are you able to also put the lead pedestrian on that one, or no?
It's the same thing, we would have to request from Caltrans.
Okay,
We
can you request that? Because I think that would at least help the pedestrians a little bit at that intersection.
Yeah, we sure can do that, yeah.
Okay. And then can I check back to find out what Caltrans says about the protected left-hand turn lane? How long does it usually take them to respond?
It's hard to say. If you think we're a little slow, then very slow.
Okay, so I'll just keep checking back. Thank you.
Caltrans is usually slower than cities, a little bit slower than cities.
Okay, so you'll check about the protected, that would be great if that could be included.
Yeah, first I would like to see they fund the study, or if they have an in-house capacity to do the evaluation, if they have to put it on their future fiscal year. Caltrans fiscal year is September to September. If they have to put this study on their future fiscal year, that's a different story. But if they can evaluate it in-house, maybe in 2 to 3 months we can have some sort of an answer from them. But if they
Okay.
don't do it in-house and they want to hire somebody, then yeah, I can't even give an estimate on when should we expect a result.
I think we could just ask Sheriff Collis to provide all the accident data. That might help them out a little bit, because there's so many accidents at that intersection. So, okay, thank you.
When something happens there, you guys do go to the location, but CHP writes the report later? How does it work?
No, so if it's on Leucadia, it's ours.
Even the Caltrans jurisdiction, even if it's
Correct.
state jurisdiction?
Yeah, even on the overpass. On-ramps is CHP and overpass is ours.
And this isn't overpass, like this is literally Orpheus and Leucadia
Correct.
Boulevard.
Yeah, interesting, I learned something. So the right-of-way is theirs, but our sheriff department writes collision reports. It's interesting.
There's a
But
lot of,
they all get added to the same database, like Sweeters is the same thing everybody uses, so CHP data is also there.
okay, good. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that something will come of that, because that would be an improvement for our neighborhood for sure. Okay, anybody have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So Commissioner Wong brought up earlier the bike detection within lane. Then we have the LPI. Could LPI be used for bike detection too? To give, I mean, I think this is an entirely different education process for cyclists to understand that they can first trigger and then they could enter the intersection early. But is that the plan to basically
Yeah,
LPI would be used for bikes too?
Our goal, not for the LPI purposes, but that whole signage for bike detection and marking for bike detection, our goal is to include that in the construction phase of the LPI project. But to use LPI for bikes crossing, if that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, like, again, really high collision intersections like Encinitas Boulevard at Vulcan. I feel like all those bikes trying to get ahead of traffic a little bit, like if they had LPI, that could be really helpful. Again, I don't think cyclists would understand. Yeah, it would have to be a lot of education on
Yeah.
how that would work, but I'm just curious if that's where, is that where this all kind of all goes? Where it would be first pedestrian interval lead and then biking interval lead, or no?
Yeah, I mean, we do have with our emergency projects list, we do have a few cross bikes added to the projects list. But if the LPI really works with the cross bike, like how, yeah, it would need a lot of education to kind of, advise cyclists of, well, where you have a cross bike, then you can use the LPI to cross and, yeah, I don't know. Have you seen a separate head for cyclists? I don't think there is.
No. I really appreciate when someone's at the intersection on Vulcan and hits the light, which gives me the 2-second head start on the bike. That's like really nice, but it only works if someone's at that intersection. And so, again, I have no idea how that's done in other places in the world.
Yeah, we can look into it to see if we have any options.
Is that, sorry, one other question on that. So on the bike box, is the bike box doing any detection there with the idea that you're putting the cyclists in front, they're getting a clear space, but that's delineated to them? There's no detection there that lets them go first, actually.
So I'm not sure what the last version, there was a lot of changes that happened so rapidly after the last version that was presented to commission. The version that you are seeing with council this coming Wednesday, we moved away from the, I guess the bike boxes to a two-stage bike box. The 2 stages do not have any additional detection. They're just painted boxes on the ground. The old, larger size bike boxes, I guess, those would require some sort of detection. And then obviously relocating of our existing vehicular loops associated with them. But the 2 stages that we have right now for the Wednesday report, those do not have any kind of detection on them.
Thank you. Maybe one more, sorry, I'm just learning a lot all of a sudden. But I've seen a lot of people kind of get in fights about this at intersection. Can we now do Idaho stops as being on a bike where we're yielding at the red light and we can go if no one's coming on the stop sign? Yeah, I guess starting off saying no. I hear these conflicting reports though that basically California kind of said, bikes can now just yield at the red, not fully stop. But is that not the case?
I believe there was some legislation, but I don't think it actually went through.
Okay.
I'd have to research it, but I know currently it's not allowed.
Okay.
Yeah, it was stopped. There were I think there were 10 cities or something that were going to. I think Encinitas was supposed to be a member, but no, the legislation didn't go forward.
Okay.
That was actually AB 122, proposed by Assemblymember Warner Horvath. Not Warner Horvath. But she withdrew that is for political reasons. I talked to her a few weeks ago about that. So it wasn't because of bike safety or anything. It was some political thing. So
And another thing, it was for signals. I think it was only for stop signs.
correct. It was only for stop signs and only for cyclists over 12 or 18. I forgot which one.
Yeah.
I did have an additional comment, if I may. So this is sort of off topic, but maybe not. But it's about the last item, to evaluate opportunities for traffic calming on roadways. So again, I mentioned about how the speed limit on ECR is 55, and I don't think there are any other roads in Encinitas that have speed limit 55. But that is the quickest way, safest way to improve safety, cheapest way to lower the speed limit. So what are the possibilities of doing that? What's the procedure? Is the 85% rule still in effect?
For the lowering speed limit,
Correct.
excuse me. We talked about AB 43. We will have an item next month for commission, and then later October for city council. AB 43 will provide us some options to lower speed limit a little bit more. An extra 5 mile per hour reduction on top of the existing 5 mile per hour reduction option that we have, basically 10 mile per hour reduction option. And the way the bill is written, it's already incorporated into CVC, but the legislature says it's not enforceable. Well, I guess it's enforceable. It might not fly in court until July 2024. Our idea is we go to commission in October and then council in October, get direction from council on where to implement. There is two different paths. One path is on your high collision locations, the serious injury and fatality locations, up to 20% of your roadway network. We are allowed to utilize an extra 5 mile per hour reduction off of our 85th percentile. The foundation of it is still a speed survey. It's not, I guess, drastically changed. It's still based on a speed survey, but then we mathematically round. Let's say the speed survey comes back at 42. Right now we round to 40. Mathematically, if it's 43, it becomes 45. And then we have the 5 mile per hour reduction if there is a heavy bike activity, there's a school around, there has been collisions, something that justifies that extra 5 mile reduction becomes 35. Starting July of next year, we can do an extra 5 on our safety corridors, which is only 20% of the city. And then there's a second chapter where it says at locations near high PED generators and bike generators, you have the option of utilizing this extra. So we have two ways of approaching this. 20% of the roadway network just based on collisions, and then whatever other location you have close to schools, parks, hospitals, et cetera, you don't really need to look for collisions. You just go off of the PED generation and the bike generation and utilize that 5 mile reduction. We want to present this to council and commission next month, get direction on where you like to see these reductions applied, and then go back in March, get the approval, the resolution from the city council lowering speed limits at all these locations, and then have 3 months to change the signs and pavement legends and whatever has to change in the city. So July 1st, we have a good 20, 30, 40 different roads of the city with lower speed limits. That's our plan. 55 won't become 30, but
Yeah.
5 at a time.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation, but I don't like the part where you need accidents to lower the speed limit. Now, we do have, unfortunately, we do have an accident on El Camino Real, but we don't need more. We shouldn't need more to make it more imperative to reduce that speed limit. Because there are only going to be more bikes, because e-bikes is very popular, as you know.
Luckily, the bill was written very flexible. The AB 43 was written with that consideration in mind. They have not mandated having collisions to be able to utilize it. The language is somewhat flexible and soft. It does allow authority from local agencies to kind of modify and tweak the way. The 20% is fixed. You cannot do it more than 20%. But the fact that our residential roads are included in our roadway network, our preliminary, we already started evaluation. Our estimates, I think, showed that we have about 34 miles off of that 20% rule to lower speed limits in the city. 34, I think, would cover most of our major roads. Total of 34 miles.
So is El Camino Real, that section south of Santa Fe, is that considered a residential road?
No. No, I'm saying the legislature says you are allowed to lower an extra 5 mile only on 20% of the city's roadway network. But because all of our tiny residential roads are considered to be in our local network, it increases the total mileage of the city, and then the 20% applies to the big number, including all these small residential roads that we have, and then it gives us the 34 mile being the 24%, the 20%. So the 34, we haven't done the math, but I think most of our roads above 30 miles an hour combined would probably be around 30, 40 miles. And then we still have that extra option for bike and ped generators to use that 5 mile reduction on other roads that we like.
Because I suspect the safety would be increased a lot if you just move the transition from 55 to 40, which is currently at Santa Fe, down to about Cerro. Because Cerro is where there's a lot of residences, and south of there, not so many. So the traffic that's going to, say, the Academy will be mainly north of Cerro. So if you can move that transition from 55 to 40 down to Cerro instead of Santa Fe, I think it'd help a lot. So.
Well, again, we're still bound by the 85%.
Yes, okay.
Raul, the speed survey still is there. The speed survey hasn't gone anywhere. It's just the mathematic rounding and what happens after rounding that is changing with the bill. So we cannot just go and declare,
Just because it'd be safer, you can't just do it.
yeah, no.
You need more accents.
Okay.
I hate to say it.
I think we got a little off topic here, but definitely important. So maybe we can continue this during Commissioner's Corner if we need to. If there weren't any more questions on our current document, the updates, I think we're on to B, which is Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission log. And I do see, thank you, this is where you asked it, you put 71 on there, the protected left-hand turn lane that I asked about last time, so thank you very much. I also did want to follow up, I think Lucadia roundabout signage, I think that Commissioner Gross might have asked about that, because our top roundabout is missing lights, and there was another accident, I was just walking my dog across it, and there were lots of car parts strewn across the crosswalk again. So where do we stand on the roundabout signage?
Oh, it's being evaluated. We had one new collision at El Portal as well. So we're evaluating potential improvement options at these roundabouts to see what we can do. Aesthetics obviously matters. We don't want to, add bollards everywhere around these roundabouts. But safety obviously matters a lot
Yeah.
more than aesthetics. So
Yeah, it does. Now, the accidents, do we know was alcohol involved in any of those? Yes. So, I mean, I think that it's a little difficult to provide enough signage for somebody that is drinking and driving. So I'm not sure that we want to make that our, even though there are accidents, if it's because of alcohol related, everybody else is seeing it, so I just got a nod from you. So I'm assuming it was alcohol related?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
There's been several.
Okay. Yeah.
The only other thing, I think we talked about it briefly, Abe, is, a lot of the European roundabout designs have speed humps in entry. Now, again, if someone's completely blasted, maybe they just fly over the speed bump, but why can't we do speed bumps in our roundabouts? Is that just a fire safety issue?
yes, so in general, we on none of our classified roads, I have the authority to even initiate speed cushions. Those are only by council direction. On our residentials, we can initiate, but then fire department has to bless, like the cases like Eola, Sheridan, Andrew, like these roads that we have. But on classified roads, like the 101 case, it was direct council approval that those 3 speed tables were added.
Yeah.
Or the Vulcan one, council approved those.
Okay, I just wanted to do a couple more updates. The other 2 I was just hoping you could give us an update on was sorry, I just lost it on here, was the Hygeia roundabout, because I just have to ask, since there's other roundabouts being proposed in the city, I just need to ask how our one that's designed and ready to go, how that one is coming. Hopefully there's some more grant money. And then the commissioner-initiated item to evaluate and re-implement red light cameras in the city. How is that coming to? So those were my 2 questions for updates, please.
Nothing new on the Hygeia roundabout. I know our CIP team is trying to apply for different grants that are available. With regard to red light, trying to remember, there was one comment that came during a review of our bike emergency projects that during my presentation at council on Wednesday, I'll mention that these were the comments from the commission with the additional enforcement. But there was this other idea about commission sending a letter to council, and I guess the fact that it's joint meeting Wednesday, it would be an open forum for commission to express its concerns and suggestions to council. I think that would be a very good opportunity.
Thank you for that suggestion. I'll make sure that those of us that are there, bring this up, because I think it's really important. Sheriff, are you going to be at that meeting on Wednesday, the joint meeting?
I will be, my captain as well, and I think maybe lieutenant, so we'll all be there.
Okay, fabulous. That's great. Okay, any other commissioners have questions about this document? Okay, if there's no further comments, thank you for that update on that, Abe, much appreciated. And I think we're on to development review, if we need it, that document. Any commissioners have questions, comments on the development review document? No? Okay. Okay. Everybody good? Okay, great. Well, I think that takes us to item number 9, and maybe I just wanted to, since it is Commissioner Corner, maybe we can swing back to Sheriff. And did you find that information that I was asking about?
I did. So on, it was August 30th, we had over 40 motors, and we did work our whole north coastal area, which was Encinitas, Solana Beach, and Del Mar. Most tickets were written in Encinitas by far. So we had 301 total tickets for all 3 cities. Speeding in Encinitas, we wrote 64, expired registration 8, stop signs 22, cell phones 68, more than speeding. Sign violations 2, no driver's license 4, no insurance 3, red light 6, 7 others, and then 2 e-bikes. And that's just the city of Encinitas.
What are the tickets for e-bikes? Like, what does that mean? Was it speeding or?
It was probably one of them, I know that we did confiscate one e-motorcycle. I don't think that was one of them. The other ones were probably no helmet or riding more than one person on a bike. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
But I know I told them the 3 new municipal codes to go out and enforce those, so hopefully those are 2 of them.
And then I just had a question about e-bikes on sidewalks. I was walking with my mom the other day, and she was, startled and a bit, she's 80, and a bit worried about an e-bike that was approaching behind her really quickly. So is that against the law, or are e-bikes allowed on the sidewalk?
In business districts, they're not allowed to be on the sidewalk.
Like Leucadia Boulevard?
That'd be legal.
It would be legal. So yes, they can ride on the sidewalk. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's good to know.
Every city is different, but yeah, in Encinitas, that's the way it is currently.
But I think Paramunico, the only place in Encinitas that's not legal is downtown.
Okay. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I knew. Any other comments?
That's the first time I've heard that the distracted driving cell phones has been above speeding. Was there a concerted effort there on?
No, personally, I think cell phones are the biggest problem currently in all of the driving world. Everyone's on their phones. They're not looking at what they're doing. So I think personally, cell phones are a bigger issue than speed, in my own opinion.
Wow. Yeah, that's, terrifying that you think that. I agree with you. But yeah, what's the ticket for the cell phone? The
I
cost?
believe if it hasn't changed with all court costs and everything, you're looking at 162. But it's not a moving violation yet. But I think the plan is eventually it will be.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other commissioners for Commissioner Corner?
I did want to just mention, I know we talked a lot about red light cameras and traffic speed cameras, which, Chair, you pointed out correctly to me last month that they were illegal in California, but that AB bill is going forward, and there's 6 cities that are going to be, it looks like will be part of the pilot. I had made talked to Mayor Kranz about, trying to get us on that. Doesn't sound like that's something that's going to happen, but I think it's something that we can bring up again tomorrow. And there seems to be a lot of momentum in California now for additional camera enforcement. I don't know if you guys are following anything going on in the Bay Area. It sounds like Oakland was issued by Governor Newsom emergency cameras for policing and traffic efforts. So I think there's a lot of momentum around this in the state to change enforcement. So I think we should, even though it is illegal, we should continue to push, because I don't think it's going to be illegal for much longer.
Thank you for that info. Commissioner Johnston?
Yes. I believe over a year ago, we were expecting to see a mobility element come forth. Has there been any progress on that, Abe?
They are finalizing the goals and policies of the mobility element. On that approach, it should go to council in 2 to 3 months because we just got an email. They're reviewing that. Maybe I can ask them to present it to commission before going to council. On the impact analysis guideline side, they did the VMT analysis guideline. It's not yet presented to council, right? Later this month, we'll go to council. The VMT guidelines, the general plan goals and policies chapter, the piece that the developer would have to prove they're also in compliance with the goals of the general plan on top of the VMT. That piece would come back after they have an approved list of goals and policies. So these are the two stops that they have at the city council. I can ask the project manager to have another round of presentation for the commission.
Okay, I think you said that we'll see some progress on this in the commission here by the end of the year.
The idea was before any major approval at council, they come to the traffic commission, to the mobility commission. Yeah, I can check with the project manager to see what the next major stop is.
Great, because that affects the vocabulary of things like arterial streets and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay, I did just want to make sure that I thanked Matthew for his report. I'm not sure I did that when I transitioned, so thank you very much for being here tonight and presenting to all of us. We really appreciated it. I think I just jumped to the next one without giving you a proper thank you, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, well, with that, thanks to the public for sticking around for so long, and I move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? You've lost his, I need a first.
All right, motion to adjourn.
And a second from Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
I thought we'd be here till 9.